with all the big calls on all the big races. Welcome back. It's another What a Shout brought to you Festival Week. Sometime on a Friday you will be watching this, maybe now Saturday. It's all done and dusted. As far as we're concerned here in the studio, Gold Cup Day still to happen. But don't worry, we'll be giving the review of Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday at this greatest show on turf that has been the Cheltenham Festival. So, somewhere in the capital, Dave Orton, thrilled to be back in the seat with you. Don't forget, like, subscribe, comment and share. That's what it's all about. If you're watching on YouTube, get involved, get your comments in. Who remembers this show last week? We will be talking about a certain Midlands National. And yes, the show goes on the road on Saturday as well. We'll still find you some winners. 4 big race previews coming your way. No guest this week. We're keeping it in-house. I say no guest. But Keith Melrose, who makes a... Is this your annual trip to What a Shout as well?
Basically, yeah. What a Shout on Midlands National Day and maybe once other time. But this is the only time I'm actually in the studio for What a Shout, I think.
Yeah.
Because we're all sitting here ready for the last day at Cheltenham as we speak.
Yeah, and we work you rather hard. We get you rather in during Cheltenham Week, the betting editor, of course. And your pal, Matt Gardner, joins us as well. One of our handicappers here at the Racing Post. Matt joined us last year to crunch all the numbers. It has been fascinating so far, Matt. We're going to have the review, but not just that. We want to get a couple of winning tips again from you, if you don't mind.
Well, I'll do my best.
Do your best.
See. Yeah,
it's great.
How much interest do you take in the Midlands National if we didn't have you in here?
It wouldn't be top of my list, I'll be honest.
Come on.
You've been doing Maidan this winter, haven't you?
I've been doing Maidan, yeah. I've been doing the all-weather, yeah.
We're just making sure you can cover all the bases, you see.
Have you got anything for Dubai World Cup night next week?
To be honest, not yet. I haven't really looked properly at it yet, but we will. That'll be next week's job.
People will be getting FOMO now that Cheltenham's ended. You know, even some people will be watching this afternoon, and probably the cross country still coming out and all that sort of stuff. You do get FOMO, don't you? When do you get it? I usually get it after Tuesday finishes.
What,
Cheltenham's just nearly it's already over.
I basically pack up for Cheltenham after the Gold Cup. So it's all about the Gold Cup. The Gold Cup's the greatest sporting event in the world. And then after that, everything, the fact that the 3 races to come aren't my favourites of the week's one thing. But on top of that, nothing could follow the Gold Cup.
Well, I can tease you. Me and Keith think we've got the winner of the Midlands National since Wednesday night. We've been having a little look. Now, from our sponsors, Bet365. He's been at Cheltenham all week. He's going back on Friday. But we've managed to catch up with Pat Cooney. We can still get him, despite the fact he's in Stratford-upon-Avon.
Absolutely, yes. And I'm about half an hour away from the track. And it's been wonderful racing. And it's good to have all the stars turn up and deliver, isn't it? So Tuesday was a really, really memorable day. I think Friday's Gold Cup meeting is going to have to go some to top Tuesday.
Wouldn't be a What a Shout without you, Pat. And you remember this show last year, of course, when we got the handicappers in. It's been a great series again for What a Shout, hasn't it? Last Friday we did the live show, Johnny Deneen, Paul Keeley. That was well received. We had a great time, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And many people at the races came up to me to say how fresh and innovative it was. And they loved the timing at 6 o'clock. And there were some quite deep thoughts on the races that we covered. And lots of clues, and people paid good attention to it. So very well received, being very popular, the show.
All right, great. Okay, Pat. Well, listen, I hope you've got your fingers on the buzzers, because we're going to stretch Pat's knowledge of next year, what might happen and all that stuff. Prices all over the place if you want them. It does come to that point now, chaps, doesn't it, when you start thinking, all right, the Gold Cup's not run yet when we're filming, but you're thinking about next year's Champion Hurdle, the Champion Chase and all that. We can't help ourselves, can we?
It's not can't help ourselves. I genuinely think, and I don't know if you agree, immediately in the aftermath of Cheltenham is the best time to bet at Cheltenham until about November. We've got 8 months before we get a better opportunity, better window to bet on Cheltenham, because in the moment where prices are put up, there's all that uncertainty flying around. The horse I have backed for next year's Cheltenham, I backed in Perry Pass for the Champion Hurdle. When he crossed the line, some firms went 5, some firms went 10. In that moment of confusion, if you've got a clear idea of what you want to back that horse at, you can move in. And I've backed in Perry Pass to next year's Champion Hurdle in the hope Constitution Hill goes over fences, because if he does, then this horse, he was a machine on Wednesday, could really be that class.
All right, Keith gets the ball rolling then. Let's come to Matt. Let's start with the Champion Hurdle, shall we? It was the horse, the talking horse of the whole entire season. He delivered what we wanted to see, didn't he? Broke State Man, I think we agree with that. RPR, please.
Yeah, 177. I mean, coming into the race, he was a Champion Hurdle winner in all but name. He'd already run to a high enough level. That's 177 is now, apart from Mr. Brack, the 181, he's the second highest rated 2-mile hurdler. It's the best champion hurdle winning performance.
Not surprised, because Mr. Brack's win
was it Leopardstown, wasn't it, or wherever it was? I think.
Well, the horse he used to beat was Moscow Flyer, who was the horse that gave him his big figures. But he was beating Theatre World and French Holly in the champion hurdles, and that you don't get big figures beating them.
No. So your team must have been itching to give him the 180.
Well, I was going to say to you, were you, because we both worked together at Timeform, and were you there when Franco was running?
Yeah. Yep.
So when Franco was running, every time he would run, we knew from the Guineas that we were going to rate Franco higher than Seabird, who was the old top on Timeform figures eventually. And every time he ran, we were looking, not to see if he'd win, because obviously he was 10s on, we were looking to see if today was the day he was going to get 146. And then one day he did it in Queen Anne eventually, won by 11 lengths, because he always used to win by 4 or 5 and only do what he needed to. A little bit like what Constitution Hill did on Tuesday. He could have won that by 20, but he won it by 9. And now we're just waiting with Constitution Hill for him to do that, to do what he did to John Bond, but do it to Stateman or somebody of that class, and then he gets his 181, because we know he's got it in him now, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to these sort of figures, you're talking about as much about opportunity as you are ability. You know, there's no doubt he's got the ability to beat Mr. Brack's rating, but he needs the pace, he needs the horses. Stateman is really good. I mean, the level he ran to 166, that would have won him a champion hurdle. Bouvier ran to 165.
The story goes, he goes to Aintree Hurdle now, I believe, all being well. And depending on what turns up against him, Aintree isn't as stiff as Cheltenham, but it has got that long straight with 3 hurdles. If Nico at the top of the straight goes, you know what, I'm just going to go. I'm off.
Yeah.
And he could put so much ground into those horses, and if they're 160 horses that you can think of run their figure, and he puts that distance into them, it could be that the Aintree Hurdle's the day. But this is exactly like Frankel. It's all about is next time the time?
I totally
is next
agree.
time the opportunity to do it?
I think this is fascinating.
He needs his acceleration. State Man could be his acceleration.
Well, this is what we're going to get to, because who's the horse that's going to push him? Let's go to Pat then quickly. You've been listening to this, Pat. Let's just play the game that he's going to stay down the Isterbrat route, because the guys will tell you if he's going to get the 180, it's probably going to be over hurdles initially, and otherwise we're going to have to wait a little while.
Yeah.
Who could be the horse? What's he going to do? What price in the aftermath did you go for next year's champion hurdle?
Well, we went 4 to 7, but you'd be a brave man to bet the odds on with the uncertainty. You do sense that the owner's keen to go chasing, whereas Nicky Henderson would be more inclined to say, what's wrong with leaving a legacy over hurdles and then switching? So you'd be brave to bet the odds on, but in Pare Pass, he sits there now, second fav at 6, Stateman's 8. You can't really back him you can't say he's better than Constitution Hill, but he'd be a runner if the other one goes fencing. And Marine Nationale is 8 to 1. It's difficult to see anything else throwing the hat in the ring. You look at the Triumph Hurdle on the Friday, I would doubt if anything emerges as a champion hurdle contender there. So in Pare Pass, talking of Isterbrak, he did win the 2-mile 5, didn't he, as a novice, and dropped down. And I don't think the connections were thinking he was a raw 2-miler before Cheltenham, but he certainly showed plenty of gears. And if you're giving me a tenner to have a bet on the festival next year, I think you have your 5 each one in Pare Pass at 6 to 1, and you certainly get a few quid back.
It's the great game of chess now, isn't it?
Well, I think that's when Pere Pass isn't the reason he ran in the Ballymore because they had Facile Vega for the.
I think so. I think we have to agree on that.
I think they knew he had the speed for 2 miles.
100%. He hadn't run over beyond that going into it. That was the question you had
to
to
ask. They ran them in the Ballymore just out of convenience. It was just shuffling their pack.
We'll get to the Ballymore. Let's just concentrate on the champion hurdle a little bit. If you're Stateman and you're a fan, and lots of people back Stateman out there, it
was a great thieving each way back.
It was a thieving each way back, and he finished second, didn't he? And Zanahir was obviously third. What do you do, Stateman? Because a lot of people on the Tuesday, we were doing the live show, for example, and a lot of people were like, he's a great bet for next year's champion hurdle. I think this was before Impero Pass had run, of course, because now Constitution might move off, you see.
Yeah, I mean, you're desperately hoping he does. That you go somewhere else.
But does he need to step up again, to see off another start?
Isn't he quite big? Isn't he quite big?
At the start of the season, it was stayers, it was chasing, we didn't know where they were going to go with him. He was the one that was in all the markets.
Isn't next year's Arco going to be Marine Nationale versus Stateman?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean,
that's my sort of view at this point.
Are we sure that Constitution's not going down Arco route as well? We don't know. It all depends now on Constitution, basically. Where do you think he should go? I want just a quick line on if he were yours. Let's play that theoretical game. What would you do?
I said if I were Michael Buckley, I'd have said to Nicky Henderson in the winner's enclosure, you've got a year to get this horse ready for the Gold Cup, Nicky, and if you don't fancy it, Paul will.
Yeah, it's all right, fair enough. Matt?
Yeah, I'd be just tempted to try and win the next 4 champion hurdles with him.
A lot of people are saying that's been poo-pooed. A lot of people go, it's boring or whatever. But listen, you've got to, as Honeysuckle shows you, you've got to get there, haven't you? Stay sound, all that sort of thing. So that's a feat in itself. Pat, Constitution Hill, you're the owner.
Yeah, I'm staying hurdling. I'm going to stay hurdling and get the hat trick and then go fencing. But I wouldn't mess around with the Arkle or anything. I'd be going straight for the Gold Cup.
There you go. A lot of people thought that was madness when we first started saying it might even be champion chase and then go. He is the Frankel of the jumps. There's no doubting that, this chap. Let's hope he's got that figure in him. Let's look at the Arkle then, if we don't mind. Let's go back in time. John Bon, of course, finishing second to El Fabiolo. A lot of people worried about his jumping. He came up absolutely perfect. What figure did we give?
Yeah, 172 El Fabiolo, bettered only by Shishkin among recent winners. I mean, pre-race he was 167, which was enough to see him win 5 of the previous 10. So he already set like a really good standard. Obviously, John Bon, the level he ran to in defeat had won him an Arkle. And El Fabiolo made him look pretty ordinary, didn't he, really?
I know that Johnny, who handicaps the Irish Chasers, he really liked the performance in the Irish Arkle. It would have been a good time because Dysart Dynamo did what he did in the Arkle itself and went really hard and set up for a good time to be recorded. I think we've bumped that figure up. I think the first provisional figure that went on was lower than 172. I think it might have been 169, 170, and we bumped it up since because at the time there was a big disjoint between us and the Timeform figure. Timeform have gone really high on El Fabiolo. They've really got it out about him. So I think that he is clearly a superior Arkle winner, but we're going to get on to the champion chase. It's not like that's easy.
No, I think
people assume that because the Arkle's first,
yeah,
and people always see the Arkle first and go, oh yeah, obviously that's horse is going to win the champion chase next year, but they get the advantage of first go, and then we saw the champion chase.
Yeah, I mean that was only his 3rd start over fences.
Was it really?
El Fabiolo, yeah, and I thought the way that he, like you say, Dysart Dynamo tore off, and the way that he coped with a really strong race on his 3rd start over fences in that sort of environment augurs pretty well for next.
Are we looking at a champion chase of the future? Because Energumen's going to be 10. We'll get to him, of course, next year. He'll be going for a 3-timer. I mean, it has to be his race, doesn't it?
I think it has to be. He's got so much speed. He still does show that inclination to get into the bottom of one.
Yeah,
but it was actually impressive how he was able to do that and still not miss a beat, really.
That's what people who took the faith, I think, with El Fabiolo, a lot of jockeys that I spoke to on previews and things like that, they were like, his ability to overcome that at Leopardstown and still win by 10 lengths was seriously impressive.
Yeah, it was very impressive. I mean, he's short. He's what? It's like 3 plays 5s with him and Energumen for next year's champion chase. I'm not sure have that much between them.
And what about John Bon? Let's move to him because he's, domestically the big hope. Did he run his race, Matt?
Yeah, he did. He wasn't far below form at all. I mean, he was 164, which would have won him 2 of the last 10 Arkles. I mean, his jumping was a bit scruffy, and he maybe pressed on a little bit too far out chasing Dysart Dynamo. I just sort of wonder whether he's going to end up being a bit of a cue card to a good horse, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Kind of that good horse, but not quite the star that sort of helps.
The cue card comparison is probably most apt when you talk about going up in trip, isn't it?
Yeah.
He might be the bet in the Ryanair next year.
Surely.
He might be the bet in the Ryanair next year for me.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to that now. Oh, that is very interesting. Pat, let's go back to you then. Let's play this game. El Fabiolo, what price did you go for next year's champion chase? And did we get anything for John Bon?
Yeah, with 4 El Fabiolo and 8-1 John Bon. I still wouldn't give up on John Bon, but you'd have to say, as things stand at the moment, he's not as good as El Fabiolo. And in Energumen, he's 11-4. If they met tomorrow, these 3, I'd certainly fancy an Energumen, particularly if it was soft. But who knows what ground we're going to get. I think with an Energumen, if it says soft in the ground, he is that much better. If we get a good ground champion chase, I think the younger speedsters, El Fabiolo and John Bon, would finish in front of him. So, as ever, it's ground dependent, this race, I think.
I mean, he needs to be a soothsayer to work that out.
Yeah, the thing with the champion chase is, it's of all the championship races, it's the one that the older horses do best in.
Yeah.
Historically, it has happened over a course of years and years. I mean, I think it's because speed requires strength, and obviously these older horses, they'll retain their muscle capacity, whereas it's not about lasting. And I think these older horses do better in 2 mile chases.
There's probably something about the division as well, isn't there, in terms of kind of younger horses maybe going up in trip and that sort of thing, whereas champions tend to stick around at 2 miles.
And they don't take as much. You don't take as much out of yourself over 2 miles as well. You know, the Gold Cup's got this reputation for really getting to the bottom of horses, and it just doesn't happen the same way in champion chases.
Love it. Okay, one more race then on the Tuesday to look at the best day's jumps racing I think any of us can remember, and the Supreme didn't disappoint, did it?
No, really good winner for potential kind of more than form at this point. He's 158, which is slightly below the sort of 10-year average of 160.
Why is that?
Pre-race, the standard was pretty low. Most had a lot to find in relation to what it normally takes to win a Supreme. But there's no doubt that the winner's got absolutely just bundles of potential. And he still looked pretty a bit gawky, a bit inexperienced, didn't he? And
he looks like an old school Supreme winner to me. You know, the sort of horse that went on to Arkle next year and then up to maybe try at King George the following year. He's got a lot of size about him, hasn't he? And he's not a raw 2-miler. It was the last 2 furlongs that really made a difference in the Supreme. Yeah,
and I think what he did the time before in Ireland, he quickened to win a race, but he's not all about speed, is he? He's kind of the sort of horse you could see taking to a fence, going up in trip, that sort of thing. But yeah, really promising winner.
Okay, all right. Facile Vega?
Yeah, you had an interesting theory on Facile Vega.
Did I?
Yeah, you think he cut out?
Oh yeah, well he did, didn't he?
He's just a bridle horse, I thought. He's a bit like Envoy. He's just had everything on the bridle.
Yeah, I think it was just the way he cut out the time before. He sort of did that again, going down to the last. I thought he was going to pick up better than he did, and then he just sort of started paddling, and that was kind of that really. He never looked like carrying himself up the hill.
I want to see what they do with him next year.
He's got the make of a chaser.
He still gave an excuse afterwards, Paul Townend, didn't he? He did. He was like, I got to the front a bit too soon. He left They still weren't happy with it. You know, they still feel, and the Impair Pass thing, which we're going to come to in a minute, that's 100% why Impair Pass went to the.
And the weird thing is,
they believe in this all so much.
It's faith over reason, because if they ran over 2 miles tomorrow, if they turned up in the top novices at Aintree, for instance, Impair Pass would be odds on.
What does he do, Facile Vega?
I have no idea. I'd be at a bit of a loss because they've obviously bigged him up. He can never be the horse that they get lined up for the county, can he?
No.
So
and the mama obviously stayed over hurdles, didn't she?
Yeah,
so, you know,
he's definitely got the size and scope to make a chaser. I am just worried about that kind of. He was better at Cheltenham, but I just don't feel like he's seen his races out. They've got a little bit to work on there, I think.
All right, okay. Tuesday, we must move on. Who's enjoying this then? This Cheltenham 2023 review. Looking forward ahead to next year. Reminder, we are still going to preview 4 Saturday races coming up. All right, it was Champion Chase then. The day still is all about that on Wednesday, isn't it? Pretty much. And Energumene then, Matt, came to the fore. Back-to-back champion chases in what, to most people's eyes, looked a bloodless success, but it was a messy race, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, on form, he was right back to the very best. He was 178, which is matching the pick of his form. You know, it's a big performance, but it's one of those that's just easy to pick holes in. You know, Edwardstone wasn't Edwardstone, was he? From a long way out. Editor Tagit and Greenatine took himself out of it as much as anything. So, I was sort of against Energumene kind of pre-race just because he looked a bit lifeless at Cheltenham the time before.
I agree.
But on his day, he's very, very good. And I think the thing with Energumene is he sort of breaks horses as much as anything. He probably didn't have to at Cheltenham, but you know he can when he meets a good one.
Exactly. You need to. It's really hard work to get him off the bridle, isn't it? That's what even Shishkin found it in Clarence House. Yeah. The hard bit is getting an Energumene off the bridle, and if you can, maybe you can beat him. That's what happened in the Clarence House this year, but it's so hard to do. He's got such a high cruising speed. You know?
So beating Captain Guinness, who is the benchmark, I'm assuming?
We don't always need benchmarks in these races, Dave, but Captain Guinness puts a limit on the form, it'd be fair to say.
And I mean, it's one of those where 178 is plenty high enough when you think about how far everything else was beat. I mean, I
got to be honest, I'm surprised it's as high as his best ever.
Well, look at the margins. 10 lengths to Captain Guinness, 24 lengths after that to Greenatine.
I watched Energumene pull up, and then they cut back on the TV to Greenatine crossing the line, and I had to do a double take and watch it again to see if that was actually
Captain Guinness run the race of his life and been slammed by 10 lengths?
More or less.
More or less. Yeah, I mean, he travelled really well into it, Captain Guinness, and you know he's just one of those horses that. It's not a case of him kind of setting the standard, but it's one of those where he doesn't stop Energumene from being at his best.
He has, and the thing is what's about Captain Guinness that I hadn't appreciated, but as Ross Briley pointed out to me, he was the youngest horse in that race. He seems like he's been around for a long time, and you know he's finally sort of getting there. I'm not surprised it's a career best from him. I was chortling away at the start of the race. How is this going off 12-1 for a champion chase? But he's just grown up. And there was a lot to be said in that race on Wednesday for turning up, because only 2 horses did it. And as a result, he's got himself second in a champion chase.
One of the stories of the week, of course, the real whacker, I want to call him the royal whacker, he pretty much was for anyone that backed him. Loads of people did, Sam Twiston-Davies, Patrick Neville, one of the smaller yards. But how did we rate, as a performance, the Brown Advisory?
Lowest renewal since Black Lion in 2016. 163, the real whacker. He's got those nice attributes, he's properly likeable, he jumps really well. But that doesn't make him a sort of above average winner, if you know what I mean.
How much has he improved on his dipper form for going up in trip then?
He took a sizable step forward. I can't quite remember.
I thought it was only £3.
It was only £3.
I thought he got 160 for the dipper.
Right. Okay. He's a bit higher on that than I had him on my mind.
So I think Steve went really quite high on the dipper to make sure he was in the running for the RS or the Brown Advisory.
We were talking about Gold Cup with this chap, weren't they? And he is next year's Gold Cup. Whether you think he's going to win it or not, it doesn't matter. That's his place.
How do you play? I mean, you assume this horse runs in the Charlie Hall to start with, and then they try and judge from there what they've got. And try and move him up. I mean,
nice nod for a Bet 365 then.
Of course, yes, the Bet 365. Charlie Hall.
Pat's chuckling away there. He's enjoying that one.
And then, I mean, what he might end up doing next year if the Charlie Hall doesn't end up going that well for him, I think he'd be a smashing Grand National horse.
Yeah. He's got the attributes for that, doesn't he? Yeah.
Massive jumper,
big
grinder,
jumps well, jumps big. Yeah. Tries really hard.
Was
really
the best horse in the race second?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
The most capable horse in the race was second quite comfortably.
How did he get beat, Jerry Cologne? What did we
He dropped the bit down the hill, but we've rated him joint, haven't we?
Yeah, the joint, yeah.
Which is conservative. It might have been the downhill run.
It was after 3 out, wasn't it?
Potentially.
He started running away. And he obviously hit the last as well, didn't he?
I was never convinced by his jumping. I thought he was a bit slow, a bit like he just didn't really sort of attack him. I wouldn't rule him out as a Gold Cup horse next year. No. I think stamina test, if he sorts of jumping out a bit more experience, like you say, he's by some way.
It was one punt that got away from me that I was with him after Sandown all the way, but I will get that back. I know I will.
I think, well, that's the thing. The most able horse won that race, and you feel by seeing that you're doing down the real whacker. However, there's so much to be said on, especially the old course at Cheltenham, over fences for bouncing out, jumping well.
Yeah.
It is such a big advantage. In fact, Editor de Gite showed exactly that in the Clarence House, because he wasn't the best horse in the Clarence House. We know that, and that was proved again on Wednesday. But there's so much to be said at Cheltenham, and especially in the old course, for going out in front and meeting them all on a stride.
Okay, well, we're staying with the old course now. I've got one more race on the Wednesday to do, and Pat, you've been listening to us there. Real whacker, around about 20s for next year's Gold Cup?
Yeah, he's 16-1. There was a lot to like about how brave he was, but I think the bare form, you could pick holes in it, but as the guy said, we'd love to see him at Wetherby in the Bet 365 Charlie Hall chase, and he is trained locally to the track, so that would be a good place to start him off. And who knows who we'll bump into that day? He might bump into Lucinda's horse, for example. There doesn't tend to be an Irish horse running that, so that might be a good spot to start him off with. But 16-1 if you want him, not for me.
All right, okay. And Ballymore then. This was thought to be a match-up between Hermes Allen. What happened there, guys? And Impera Pass. First of all, figure for the winner.
162, which has him right up with the likes of Bob Ollinger and Envoy Allen as the best, the better recent winners. It's rare to see a novice settled as quickly as he did it.
Oh yeah.
That turn of foot.
Was it a 1-2-3 for Mullins from memory?
Possibly, yeah. And but it was on that last bit before the camera swings. He jumped the third last flight. He jumped the hurdle about level, and then by the time they turned side on, he was 4 clear.
Yeah, he settled it in just no time at all, did he? He was really impressive, and like Marine Nationale, just bags of potential. I think there for sure.
Okay, all right. So next year's champion hurdle.
I've backed him for it, so I hope so.
Right. Okay. All right. There we go. We've got to whittle through these. I'm getting told by the producers in my ear. So that's the Wednesday done. We had Thursday as well. Let's go to the Ryanair. Shishkin was thought to be the banker for many in that. Got turned over.
What names did you call him? I called him a lot of names.
Yeah, quite a few. None of which I can broadcast.
Exactly. I don't think. No, absolutely not. So a lot of them started with Dirty.
Swine, I believe, was the name.
Swine was on the Racing Post Live.
Yeah, just never really going, was he?
It was how he carried his head after 2 out as well.
Yeah. Envoy Allen then comes back to form. Third festival win for him. How did we deal with figures and all this?
Yeah, 165, which is below power. I think we've been spoiled a little bit with Allaho the last couple of years, and it's one of those races where you've got like French Dynamite, who's he's very well exposed as like a mid 150s horse who's kind of running above himself at about 159, and there, given the winner's profile as well, you don't want to be going much higher than mid 160s.
I mean, take Shishkin out of that race entirely, and the result makes a whole lot of sense. Envoy's a mid to high 160s horse. Hitman's a low 160s horse. French Dynamite is about a 160 horse. And the result made sense besides Shishkin, who just did what he wanted.
Yeah, I mean, pre-race, take Shishkin out of the equation. It's fundamentally a below par renewal before you even started. So
that's why Shishkin was so attractive to a lot of people at even money.
And then he just kicked his way around Cheltenham.
And then he decided he didn't fancy it, didn't he? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So that was a substandard Ryanair. What about the Turners?
So yeah, again, another below par renewal. Stage Star 159. Not really needed him to better his handicap form. He won that novices handicap at Cheltenham. That was off top weight. Obviously seen to really good advantage from the front. Bit like the real whacker in that his jumping is a proper asset, but helped in no small part by Mighty Porter and Appreciate It doing what they did.
Oh, I appreciate. Yeah,
There's a few names.
Yeah, that was
interesting because David Russell got off and said, I wasn't too bothered about that. Maybe we just weren't good enough.
He hung badly right, didn't he? And
They
sort of said he lost a shoe and all that sort of stuff. The thing that worried me about Mighty Porter is that it all looked like really easy for him until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And then like he travelled, he jumped, I thought. Like he just looked really kind of professional and economical, and then all of a sudden he was...
Yeah. What's this? The second's been rated 155 have gone. It's not long till May. Laura Morgan's horse. I sort of said, I like this horse, but he should be in the Future Stars at Ayr instead, and he'll probably go a favourite for that now.
And was this a race where, again, a soft lead and sectionals, a lot of people talking about how well Harry judged it?
The real whacker, it was the horse needs a lot of credit for that because of the way he jumped and the way he gave for Sandhurst Davies. I thought Harry Cobden deserved the credit for Stage Star. He basically took the mickey out of them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the real whacker kind of, I think because of the way Jerry Colombo finished, a lot of people made the whole he's been seen to maximum effect from the front, which he was, but Stage Star was kind of even more so.
Oh yeah, it was Harry Cobden doing what Frankie Dettori's been doing in the flat for 25 years, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Right. First and foremost, Pat, let's come to you. Then you've been listening to that. What were we doing with Shishkin? Anything for Stage Star?
Well, Stage Star is 11 for the Turners and 20 for the Gold Cup. The Ryanair. The Ryanair might be a good race for him, mightn't it? Again, you can pick holes in the form. As for Shishkin, he's 8-1 for the Ryanair and 20-1 for the Gold Cup. I think you'd love to see him run in the King George on Boxing Day and then see how we go from there. He looks like he wants a trip. I think more than anything, to me, he just wants blinkers to be kidded along. Nico was riding him along coming to the first fence yesterday, and that's happened before. So maybe try some headgear on him. They seem reluctant to do it, but to me, I think you've got to go down that route.
Okay, all right then. And the Stayers Hurdle, we've got to cover that, of course. It seems like we're doing many chases so far, doesn't it? Okay, we had an 11-year-old winner, Sire du Burlay, dual Pertemps winner. Great story, but what are we talking figures-wise?
Yeah, definitely the lower end. He's 162, which is kind of much more Lisnagar Oscar than Thistlecrack in the last 10 years. And
imagine a race that's got both those horses in the field of honour.
Exactly.
And more Lisnagar Oscar, it sounds a little bit.
Imagine how damning with faint praise is that? It's a bit more Lisnagar Oscar than
It is a tad, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a division that's been a mess since Big Box.
It's just always been a mess. It's always relied on that one.
We were hoping that I was hoping that Tahupu might be the star in the pack. He was a little bit unlucky. He obviously got promoted to second place controversially.
I don't think he would have won regard, but I think he's the Sire Belly's 11. Floating Porter's had his chance now. Classical Dream, you've got to start giving up that project. And Teopo is there. He's sitting there. He's like Prince Charles used to be, or King Charles now, sitting there waiting for his chance. And now next year he might get it.
Yeah, he's not going to get his ground every year, though, is he? He seems.
I suppose it wasn't that soft yesterday.
It wasn't that soft, I suppose. No,
so he should be okay, and it helps him see it out.
Okay, all right. That is the review up to Gold Cup Day done. Next week we might do the Gold Cup Day if you want it. Get your comments in below for the guys. They've given you the figures. Absolutely outstanding to listen to. I could tell Pat was enjoying it. I was as well. Two things. Lessons that we learn. What's the one lesson that you keep going every year? I don't put enough eggs in that basket. Mine is course and Cheltenham form.
That's easy. I mean, that's very easy to say.
That's
after
the top
Thursday.
one.
After Thursday, that's so easy to say. It was Cheltenham
yesterday.
Form
It was just
all
born
over
out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, lessons from this specific Cheltenham. Too quickly ground. We think rain's going to make it like Cheltenham in January. It never does in March. Unless the rain falls immediately before racing and during racing.
Quicker than expected
yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had that rain fallen on Cheltenham in January, you'd have got a bog. and because the ground in winter at Cheltenham can get pretty bad these days. The other one I'll mention is Paul Nicholls, how he got absolute pelters for his 2 big novice hurdlers failing to trap. But besides that, this week everything's run pretty well. Time White was going to finish placed at least in the Grand Daniel if he wanted to before he fell to out. He had Stage Star winning the race, and the thing with Nicholls is he's all about the long term, more than any of the other big trainers. So maybe it's to be expected that his novice hurdlers don't come up to the mark.
I do like that. We've spoken about this week, and it's a link to my eye catcher, which I'm going to ask the chaps for as well in a minute. Matt, any lessons?
I think it just underlines how key positioning is. And it's not, Cheltenham track specific, ground specific. You see horses out the back going wide trying to get a bit of fresher ground. It's got to be really bad for that to be an advantage. And like that handicap winner yesterday went rattling around the inside and won.
Side of Burley was always in the best place in the fairs yesterday.
Exactly. Just don't get carried away with, keep it simple. Don't try and do anything fancy in terms of tactics or anything like that.
We always used to say that about when Gerrity was riding those McManus horses. His knack was always being in the right place. Ryan Moore's great knack on the flat is always being in the right place. There's so much to be said for it, and there's no excuses for these big jockeys not to get it right at Cheltenham because so many of their big rides are there.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Pat, a lesson, and then you can kick off the eye catchers if you don't mind.
Yeah, I just think it's just a nod to how good a trainer Henry de Bromhead is. He works the Oracle every single year at these main meetings. And these top trainers are at the top of the tree for a reason, aren't they? They get them right on the big days. So kudos to Henry de Bromhead. His horses were a bit in and out throughout the season, but they all rocked up and they delivered on the day. As for eye catchers, I got a couple I thought ran well. I thought Camprond ran ever so well in the Coral Cup when the ground had turned too soft for him. But he was third and clear of the fourth, so he'll be going up. The one eye catcher I took out of the race, and it was in the Pertemps yesterday. Admittedly, the winner came from behind him. The winner came from behind them all, really. But I did think Walking on Air of Nicky Henderson and Nico de Bourneville, you could rank that certainly a good few lengths better than he showed. Every time Nico went for a gap, the door shut in his face. He's run very well, and he's the type of horse you could easily see him turning up at Aintree, or even Punchestown, really, for one of them big staying handicap hurdles. So put me in the Walking on Air camp.
All right, okay, there you go, Pat. Yeah, you can watch these all back, these eye catchers, on your members club. That's the thing. Check it out. Read the analysis as well. They usually put an eye catcher for each meeting as well. Mine is a Nicholls horse, and it is a hurdler.
Okay.
And it's in the Boodles, and it's Affodil.
His Boodles horses don't tend to go on like you'd think.
This is a different beast.
So you would say, I think you would say that.
Yes, I'm hoping it's a different beast. I think he could even be a potential Turner's horse next year. I really do. Affodil, watch it back. He didn't have the pace to go with him. He was steaming up the hill. And I think once, after he won at Taunton, they thought they had a proper triumph horse, and they thought, okay, let's try and get him for the Boodles, and it didn't work out for him. Watch it back. I love horses in handicaps that fly up that hill, and again, I think that might have gone slightly under the radar. Matt?
Magical Zoe in the Mares Novice. She ran really well, but she's got a massive engine. Like, she was keen throughout, made up loads and loads of ground from even turning in. She's still pretty raw and inexperienced. I think she could be a really good sort of mares hurdler next season.
All right, Keith, complete the set.
Yeah, as a horse, I will, in the pocket, finish fourth in the Supreme for Henry de Bromhead. Maybe a little bit of a presage of the week he was going to have. Big horse, he still looked green when he'd been second to Imperi Pass at the DRF. And then he turned up in the Supreme on Tuesday, tanked through the race. When the buttons were pressed, he just didn't quite have that pace to go on, but he stayed on nicely. I think he's bred to stay quite well. For me, that is a Turner's Brown Advisory horse next year. I've been asking people to quote me for the Turners. I've even asked Pat cheekily if his trainers could find the time on Gold Cup Day. But no dice so far.
That's a surprise he's not been listed, isn't it?
Yeah, for me.
They obviously just go for the sexy horses first then.
First two or three, but that horse should be in the market for the Turners for me.
All right, a compelling case then. All right, there is your Cheltenham review of the first 3 days. Let's hope you've enjoyed it out there. Let's hope you backed some winners as well, guys. The series of What a Shout, I think we pointed you on the way. Who remembers that interview with Jamie Snowden and knew where it well? We pretty much told him he might have a Cheltenham Festival winner happening. Absolutely superb. Let us know what you've got on What a Shout, on all the big shouts we've had. And of course, let us know your eye catchers below. We must move on though, because the show goes on and we go to Kempton, Pat, for some interesting racing there.
Yeah, and we start with the 205 to look at the Virgin Bet Handicap hurdle. And the favourite at the moment is Outlaw Peter. Now, he hasn't done a lot wrong, this horse, in his career. The only blip was when he pulled up in the Lanzarote. But I think about 10 of the horses pulled up that day. For some reason, the ground was just really, really testing. So pretend that didn't happen, and he's got a pretty solid-looking CV. That being said, he is a 7-year-old. There's no secrets about him. The horse that catches my eye is York Sea of Gary Moore. I think quite interesting, Gary didn't go to Cheltenham with this horse, but he's kept him for this race. 4th in the Betfair Hurdle at Newbury, which is, pretty good currency, really. He's got form on this softer ground. He was plugging on well, I thought, at Newbury that day. He's moving up 5 furlongs. It's an easier 5 furlongs. And it looks as though he wants to trip. So maybe he could improve a bit more. He's on the same handicap markers at Newbury. And if the trainer thinks he's a 3 or 4 pound better horse over this trip, that might just work the oracle. But you could certainly leave a few in this. There's a whole host of them round about 8, 9, 10 and 11 to 1. It is that sort of a handicap. I keep trying to fancy Scarface every time he runs, but I think it's time to get off that bandwagon. So I'm going to hop on York Sea's one.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of nodding going on in here with that. I find it very hard to look past him, actually. The promise of the extended trip and its Betfair Hurdle form, right?
Yeah, I love Yorkshire in this, actually. I mean, that Betfair Hurdle, it was properly slick ground, wasn't it? And another race where positioning was so key, it was really, really hard to make up ground. Trip, going up in trip, back onto softer ground, massive pluses. The Gary Moore yard are in sneaky good form as well this month. They've had seven winners. And then another 12 either second or third. They're all running really, really well.
In March?
In March, yeah.
What's the hell?
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. This is Keith's going, and let me just go, all right, let me keep jump on this bad boy.
I didn't know, I mean, I obviously Gallows loads of runners, but I didn't know he'd sort of had 7 in the month so far.
And again, this is why it's important, because everyone's going, okay, I've got to get my head out of Cheltenham now, we've got to look, and go forward. And even though Editor Jeet didn't come up and a couple of, Nassalan didn't quite figure and things like that, it's still going well for the yard, yeah?
Yeah, don't get carried away with that. I mean, it's Cheltenham.
It's Cheltenham,
it's really hard.
You had a listed handicap winner at Sandown last Saturday. That feels like several aeons ago.
It does.
Empires have fallen since Hudson de
yes.
Gougy won the listed novice handicap at Sandown last weekend, but it was only 6 days ago, lads.
Having tried to get on trains this morning, Matt, we wish empires would fall, I think, wouldn't we? All right, okay, let's go up to Uttoxeter then. It's their big day of the jump season, Pat. And again, even though it's been rather dry leading up to the last week or so, it's going to be a right old bog here. And the 225 is always an interesting race.
Yeah, I think you've got to handle the soft ground for sure and be a proven stayer. Top of the market is collector's item, and I see wisdom in this. I mean, he looks the type of horse that could be better than his mark of 132. He seems to be on an upward profile, sitting there off a mark of 132, 10-13. I think he might just about be the right favourite in the race. Trelawn is an interesting runner, Kim Bailey. We don't know not about this horse. He's lightly raced. We've not seen him for 4 months, but Kim would presumably be bringing him here with the ground in his favour. Very much one to consider. And what a shout bingo time. Lord Snooty, trained by Christian Williams, friend of the show. When he was on the last time, we did ask him about this horse, and he didn't. This was about 3 weeks ago. Christian was on. We asked him about it. He said, "Oh yeah, I think I'll run him at Uttoxeter on Midlands Grand National Day." So you can imagine that's been the plan for the horse, and stepping up in trip has really helped him. I originally thought it might be a stay and chase when I saw the entries for this race. Sam Brown and Ask Me Early in it. So I was reassured to see it was a hurdle. But I've got to say, I like collector's item handicap mark of 132.
Not just those horses that Pat's mentioned, but you also got here Ballygriffin Cottage, who was meant to be Dan Skelton's RSA horse.
Yes, they're quickly abandoning that project, aren't they? Very odd.
Gentleman at Arms has been jumping this year. He was behind Galia de Lito in the Hampton at Warwick. So loads and loads of stay and chasers in this
Pat
race.
has done exactly what I did this morning. I had to go back on the app and go, is that a hurdle?
I did exactly that. I went back to the top and went, I'll just make sure this is a hurdle, yeah?
So how are we playing this? Are we looking for like maybe something that's been plying their trade over hurdle, like a Lord Snooty or a collector's item? What are you thinking?
You want to go for these one of these unexposed hurdlers that's going to handle the conditions. Now, it's not going to be... I think when Christian Williams put Lord Snooty in for this race, he was maybe expecting it to be properly bog-like. It sort of was when he won that race at Warwick on New Year's Eve. It just... I think that it's more likely Christian Williams had a look at the prize pot for this race than John Joe did.
Well, that's what Christian does, isn't it?
He's very good at finding the races that pay the best and getting horses in for that. This horse was going. He was just getting stronger the further they went in that Warwick race. There's a big long straight at Uttoxeter. The ground's going to be quite testing. It often is there. It might not be the bog that we've known on occasion, but it's still going to be testing ground. I thought Lord Snooty was the one to be with.
We're all nodding away here. 2 collective tips, I think, so far.
Yeah, I'd probably just side with collector's item purely because Lord Snooty's had that chance. He's sort of a step ahead. He's had that chance in a handicap already, whereas collector's item's going in first time. I maybe give a little shout to Flight Deck, who kind of has 2 ways of running, and but he's laden with stamina. And if he's on a going day, he's the sort of horse that could run well.
Yeah, he's a proper Oxo horse, isn't he? You just don't know what you're going to get, but on his day, very talented.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I'd be with the unexposed ones, and I wouldn't have much between them, but I'd probably just side with Collector's Item.
Okay, a two-way split then for the panel. What do you like up there? All right, Pat, back to Kempton we go. Over the fences this time.
Yeah, 2 miles, 4.5 over the chase course, and Complete Unknown is favourite. And it's pretty straightforward, really. You tend to price these races up by trainer, really, at the 48-hour stage. And Complete Unknown, he's trained by Paul Nicholls, Harry Cobden aboard. You can imagine he's been mapped out for the race. He is a free goer, though, so he's going to have to try and make all in this race. One horse we have laid at sexy prices is number 7, Rouge Vif. Harry Whittington, Darryl Jacob aboard. You have to be a bit lenient with that one's form, but he is off a marker 137. He's been a lot higher of late. He was 33 on Monday. He's now 12, so he might be worth a second look. Not for me, sadly. I think an interesting runner. I was hoping not to fancy Mr. Fisher, because I normally fancy him every single race he has. He used to be a 160 odd. He's a 146er now. This is his first run since a wind up, but I've been on too many honeymoons with this one, so I'll let him run loose. I think the interesting one is Fidelio Vallis of Harry Derham, ex-Paul Nicholls. And this horse ran at Musselburgh when we sponsored up there on the 2-day meeting. And there was a lot of confidence behind the horse, Fidelio Vallis, and he did run well. There was a big gamble overnight sustained on the day. He ran well. The connections were hopeful of a big run, and they certainly got it. So all is well with him. So Harry Derham going great guns, of course, first season. Fidelio Vallis for me.
Righty, okay. This is an interesting pot. This at Warwick form coming to the fourth. I mean, the market has seemed to found this. Galahad Quest was a me and the postman Robbie Wilder's project.
Yeah, I got that horse a bit wrong. I thought he was wanting 2 miles. He's been one of these horses that's been threatening a big win, and I thought it would come when they dropped him in trip, but it
was poetry in motion at Warwick last time. I'm worried about the rise for him though, and slightly back.
He's had lots
off the ground.
He has had lots of chances. This horse, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I think that was his big day. So I'm going to go off him. I think the other horse.
The horse that finished second to him that day, I think is going to win.
Go.
It's Iron Bridge. It's running in the 3:35 at Uttoxeter. It's not on the telly, I don't think. But it's a really strong novices handicap chase.
All right.
But I think he's going to win the novices. It's a good novices handicap chase.
This is what you get with Keith. Look, he goes off the running order. He's giving you winners. You can tell us what's going to win at Lingfield if you want.
You've mentioned the horse that finished in front of the horse I fancy last time. For a big race, this race used to be on the telly, this novice handicap chase, because it's a really good race for producing marathon winners the following season. So it's a race I watch quite a lot of times because it's the sort of horses I'll be taking an interest in next season.
I called it the American race to you early in the week.
Yeah, because that was never well handicapped as a result of his winning that race.
But you're talking about maybe future national horses, or certainly Welsh national horses there. All right, I'm quite a big fan of Complete Unknown.
I think he's a steer.
I think he's caught between.
Worry, isn't it?
I think he's caught between 3 and 2 and this trip, to be honest.
He looked like he won 3 all day.
I think they're going to bounce him out here, and I think that's what they. I think at Warwick he was always on the turn. If you watch him back on his comeback in the Haydock, what used to be the fixed brush handicap over 3, he doesn't get home. And they dropped him in trip next time at Foss Lass, and he needed every single yard of that. But they went hard in that race, and there was a pace collapse. I love Kempton as a front runner's track. I think the market's probably got this right.
Dam's half sister to Snoopy Loopy, and another 3-miler called Sam Adams. Really stout pedigree, but obviously by Dylan Thomas because that's where his name comes from.
Complete Unknown, very good.
Complete Unknown. But yeah, so I'm with Matt. I think this horse is a steer, so I'll be trying to get him beat.
Yeah. Well, you'll be trying to get a favourite beat then with
potentially Brave Siaska wants another chance. Looked one of these Venetia horses that looked so good in its reappearance at Aintree.
Yeah,
looked like it could have run in graded races that day.
Stank in the market that day as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and since then at Cheltenham, there were excuses on January 1st. Yeah. He just had, but then he was poor on January 20 on trials day. That was a poor run you've got to forgive. But he's a cut above this level if he's back to that Aintree level. The ground's a bit better this time. In this race, I think it's worth taking. It's worth paying to find out at about 10-1.
Yeah.
He could be a cut above, and maybe he doesn't fancy it again, but I'll pay to find out at that price.
Fair enough. Matt?
Yeah, I like him. I just thought it was easy to pick holes in pretty much all of these, to be honest. I like him. I'd give a shout to Silver Hallmark, who was a Grade 2 winner as a novice.
I can never get him right, but I don't often get the chance to get him right. He hasn't been seen that much, has he?
Nah, he's a tricky horse, but he ran behind Il Ridotto in that Cheltenham Handicap, and Up until about 4 hours, he was
I was
bang
just
there.
about to say he went well for a way.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing with him, is that he just doesn't really see his races out. But he's marked sliding, and he's been given a couple of months off since. So in a race where, to be honest, I don't fancy that many, he'd probably be the one for me.
I like that Chepstow form as well. You
Yeah.
start to Fujiti, who obviously ran a cracker on the plate yesterday.
The fourth came out, and
Phoenix
has
Way
done
was
well
fourth,
since.
wasn't it? Phoenix, it's been placed in some good races since.
interesting.
Phoenix finishes fourth in everything, that horse, because of how it gets ridden. But it's a horse that's a really, if you can finish ahead of it, you're a horse that's got a bit in hand from your mark, and he's dropped 4 pounds since then.
He has, yeah.
All right, okay, a range of tips then, and what was perhaps a trickier race than some of the others we previewed so far. We're going to end on Saturday with the Midlands National, another absolute slugfest. Pat Cooney, what's the market saying with 365?
Well, we'll be paying first 5 places on the race. That's the first thing to say. I will do it. He's top weight, and he's just about market leader at the moment. I think he's got it all to do. The handicapper hasn't missed him every win that he's had. I keep being against him every run that he has. He keeps winning. He keeps going up, 7s and 10s. But to lump 12 stone round there on over 4.25 miles, well, good luck with that project. I don't fancy him at all, really. The one I like is Getapan Collonge, who was behind him at Warwick a couple of months ago, but he put together a much better performance next time out. John Joe O'Neill aboard for Charlie Longston, and you can imagine he's only a 7-year-old, so his best days are in front of him. But there are quite a few old friends in the race, aren't there? The Galloping Bears, he's always popular. The Two Amigos, they're always going to be popular in the market. I think Willie Mullins is an interesting runner. Captain Kangaroo, whose form figures look like a postcode more than form figures. But why has he turned up for the gig? I can imagine him being popular, because you shouldn't really let a Willie Mullins horse go off as big as 16-1 or bigger. Bit of a leap of faith, really, to go with him. So I like Getapan Collonge, and I do like Secret Reprieve. I think his marker 1-3-2. Evan Williams always does well on these Saturday handicap chases. So I'm going to go Getapan Collonge, Secret Reprieve as a saver. I think I will do it. I'll take my hat off to him if he can do that under 12 stone round there.
It's a pretty deep edition, this, isn't it?
Well, I actually don't think so.
Don't you?
No,
Okay. Well, I'll tell you why I say that, because I will do it. It was the rules horse for the Grand National, shall we call him, basically. But would have been running in Denman Chase and things like that. You've got the Welsh National winners in there. Okay, and you've got a previous winner in there who you're not going to tip it, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay, all right. We've got a Classic Chase winner in there as well. Mr. Incredible doesn't turn up
run
again. And Getapan Collonge and the Galloping Bear, they've all won big races, haven't they?
Well,
French
the Galloping
Paradox
Bear
will love
hasn't.
it.
He got kicked out the Haydock
Well,
race.
yes, all right.
Because he had a muscle relaxant in his system.
Yes, okay, typical Keith. All right,
and he finished second in the Eider last time to the Chuckton Kitty's Light. I mean, he's been hit for £5 for that, which is plenty. But
the fact that Getapan Collonge only got 10.5, though, I was expecting him to carry more weight here.
I don't think he stayed in the Classic Chase. And he had a hard race.
So put a line through him. You're poo-pooing Pat's tip.
He was wide, but he travelled, and I didn't think he got home, and he's young, and he had a hard race to beat Mr. Coffee.
You're ruining your price on In the Pocket, by the way. You know, he's kind of going, let's give him a couple of points short.
I think I will do it. I mean, yes, Pat's right. I took that view after the Welsh National. That's why I didn't put him up in the Classic, really, was, he had another hit. But it reminds me a little bit of, say, One for Arthur. Every time that horse won a race that season and he won the National, I went, he can't defy £9 on top of that. He's reached his ceiling now, but he kept improving. This horse just loves getting bounced out, pinging everything, and he didn't see a rival in the Classic Chase. He didn't see a horse. Mr. Incredible was second. That horse has finished third in the Kinmure the other day. Getapan Collonge, I don't think quite got home, and he's since won at Uttoxeter. Not a chance. That's his race. He was laid out for it again. He's finished third. Volcano was fifth. He was out the weights that day, but 3 Mile 5 at Warwick is his home. He might as well have a tent on the track the way it is. There's nothing wrong with that form. It was a massive performance. I'm so gutted he's not in the Grand National, because I think he'd be perfect for the race. I will do it.
And this is the winner of the 2023 Midlands National.
He's top of my list because it's a dangerous race for me, because I don't think it's that deep. I've backed every horse I fancy.
He's a bit of a winning machine, isn't he, this chap? And he's basically taken Sam to the next level. He's a very, very good horse, and he's sort of my top one. The other two I put in Tile Tapper, who's got some really good form behind Remastered at Kempton there. I never get him right, this horse.
And then at Carlisle last time, that's a good race that he won at Carlisle, and it showed me that he'll stay as far as you want him to. I think he's got a right chance, and Sean Bowen's on, which is always a positive. Absolutely brilliant, Sean Bowen. And then my sort of bit of a swing horse is Shipion for Tom Lacey. Had only 3 runs over fences. He's been learning as he went, it's fair to say. But he was better last time when he ran at Lingfield. I said in my notes that day, this horse was punching down my foot. Because Senior Das, it was second, that's won twice since.
Yeah.
The third was Hudson de Grugy that won that race at Sandown last week. This Shipion, had they gone a better pace, he would have won by further
I think I did the analysis in the post for this. I can't remember what I said, but yeah, it was something about the pace I seem to remember.
Yeah, it was no pace at all. He finished very fast.
Was it first time cheap pieces as well, potentially?
It might have been. I mean, he was jumping with sharper. He'd have won by further if he'd gone a better gallop. He's only gone up £3 because they all finished in a heap. And as I say, Senior Das has gone up more than that since because he's won 2 races. Hudson de Grugy's gone up more since. And he's 3 runs to get in. The bare minimum you need to get in a big race like this. He's a bit of a wild swing for me.
There you 2.
I mentioned 3.
Who was the third?
Tile Tapper.
Who was the first? I will do it.
it.
Second horse then I've missed out.
Tile Tapper.
Who was the third horse?
Shipion.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, okay, all right. It's been a long week. It's been a long week, and we're filming this as live. There are 3 Welsh national winners in here. That's why I lost your train of thought. There is Secret Reprieve, the 2 Amigos, and of course I Will Do It.
Yeah.
And you're a hard man to please, you are. You're not saying it's a deep race.
Well, the 2 Amigos is a Welsh national horse.
Yeah.
You know, he got bounced out this year. I don't think it was the best renewal. And you can't go and win Midlands Nationals the way he won the Welsh National. The Welsh National, you get bounced out, you never see a rival because it's a helter-skelter.
Funny, isn't it?
It's a helter-skelter down that straight at Chepstow. It's not the same at Uttoxeter. You can't quite go and do the same thing. And Secret Reprieve did the same, basically. He was always up in the van in the Welsh National when he won it. More that sort of ride. So that's, I mean, it goes for I Will Do It a little bit as well, and because the Classic Chase fits that profile where you bounce out and get in a rhythm, so maybe it's a little bit against that one, but they are different races, even though there's a lot of horses. In fact, the other horse I mentioned has got lots of Welsh National forms, Trucker's Lodge. He's been placed in 4 or something, hasn't he? Placed in 3 Welsh Nationals.
Has he run in this before? That's a good question.
He's won this race.
Okay, yes, there you are. So again, it's a brilliant race.
He's on the slide, him.
The goalposts are changing. Matt, give us a winner.
I'm not against I Will Do It. I think these sort of races, they're often more about kind of position and profile than they are about being massively ahead of your mark.
What does he need to be to defy this mark in the Midlands National?
He needs to be a good horse.
Well, what does he need to? What calibre of horse?
His current official ratings 155.
Yeah.
His RPR is 160. He improves £3. He's at least second.
He might not even need to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of these horses, you know, the test takes it out of them as much as anything, and he's just the sort of horse who's going to run his race, and if he does, he's going to be bang there.
He might, because he's not seen the track very often. You do worry about. I'm not worried about him each way. He's win only.
I get the sense you're not putting him on top though.
Well, I sort of am. There's a few kind of with questions that I might fancy, like French Paradox.
He is a bit of a worry. Yeah.
He's interested. The trip is, if it turns into a real test, that's going to be an issue for him. And his jumping's a little bit iffy, but he absolutely bolted up last time. And he just travels really strongly. If he gets into a rhythm, he could be dangerous.
He could have gone another mile that day. The way he looked, the way he ran, didn't he?
I'm not going to be able to let Major Dundee run without having a little bit on. He might be being set up for air.
I was all over this horse for the Scottish National last year.
Yeah.
But then after the way he ran in the Scottish
National, third, wasn't he?
Distant third, he was off the bridle basically all the way, and he's by Scorpion.
Yeah.
I can't name a genuine Scorpion.
He's just.
I thought you tipped him as your third horse in this at one point, but it's Scipion, of course. The other one, I've got one like that as well that I won't be able to let back to. That's Bushy Park.
That's the other one on my list as well.
Yeah, who came good. He was penciled in for the Ida. And the ground was too quick for him.
Okay.
And they pulled him out.
That's right.
He needs it proper bottomless. And he beat Sam's Adventure. He's just been a horse that hasn't really cut the mustard yet so far over fences.
Talking of horses that didn't run in the Ida, why is Young Bull not in this race?
Yeah, funny. I'm not sure.
He's been pulled out of loads of races recently.
I'm not sure. Anyway, look, okay. So to remind us, just give us one because people will be going, okay,
my top horse on that is I Will Do It. I just do not be put off by that mark. I think he's good enough.
Right, fine. Matt?
I'd have a go at French Paradox. I think he's really
will throw Bushy Park into the mix along with Pat Guetterpan Collonge. Right, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this. We've gone on quite a bit. We've shot it as live, would you believe it, as well. We're whipping through it. I've really enjoyed it as ever. It's been great to have you back down, Matt. But before you go, we want a nap from everyone. Pat Cooney, where are you going?
Yeah, Newcastle 325, number 6, Jerryville. Ridden by Brian Hughes, trained by Mickey Hammond. Stable in form. 2 winners this week. Jerryville, good run last summer. Just going through this race, there's 10 runners, 9 of them are out of form. Jerryville's the only one with decent recent form to his name. Add in a stable in form of Mickey Hammond. Ground's fine. Course and distance winner. All looks good to me. Jerryville, 325 at the Toon.
Did he might have won this race? He might have won that very race last year. He beat the Sandy Thompson horse, the Ferrymaster, who travelled all over him.
He's been promising to win one, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think the Sandy Thompson horse let him in last year.
I think I ticked him in the analysis boxes last time, which means winner next time out. I'm going to go Yorkshire if you don't mind, guys. 205. Just seeing the ball big on this one. 7-1. Tasty with Bet365.
It turns out that 3 Mile Novice Handicap Chase is on the telly. So I'm going to put up Iron Bridge.
Beautiful.
Been lined up for a spring 3 mile prize this. And it's travelled really well over 2.5
he found
behind.
It a bit short last time, didn't he?
Definitely, yeah.
I remember it now.
Yeah, no, I think this has got a 3 mile handicap chase written all over him. It might have been this, or it might have been the one at Ayr, the novices handicap, but I'm glad he's here. He's the bet.
Isn't it great how we get into these guys' minds and you see what they're, how they're waiting for these horses. Matt, give us a best winner this weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you on Yorksey. I absolutely love the trip, ground, stable form angle. Yeah, really like him.
All right, okay, that's 2 for Yorkshire. That's a double nap then. Well, sadly, that's all we've got time for. Pat, we've kept you. I'll tell you what, there's some hotel room you've got there. They're giving you like a kitchen as well. Have you got a pool? Have you got a butler?
Yeah, I've given the butler the afternoon off. So, I'm a good-natured guy.
Brilliant. Pat, it's been honestly, the run-up to Cheltenham's been absolutely fantastic, but we keep going, don't we? We'll be back next week, of course. I can't think what it is next week, but it's probably it's Lincoln coming up and all that sort of stuff. We've got the Grand National still to go. Thanks for joining us all these weeks and enjoy the final day at Cheltenham.
Thanks very much, and good luck with everybody's bets.
Brilliant. Matt, good to have you back down. Always good to hear you and Keith, sort of bouncing off each other, getting into the mechanics of it all. It's an important part of the game.
Yeah, it's been really good. I mean, we didn't whittle on about wind like we did at Newcastle and drove Ross mad. But yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, all right, brilliant. Keith, great to have you again.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love how we get the Midlands National after the Gold Cup. It's a little bit like tapering, like you're training for a marathon. You can't just go from the Gold Cup to nothing. You see a nice, tasty marathon handicap chase straight after.
You'll be back home with your feet up for that, will you?
Oh yeah, I won't miss it.
Yeah, all right, great stuff. All right, I've been Dave Orton. This has been What a Shout. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share. That's what it's all about. Get your comments in below. Don't forget safe gambling. That's what it's all about as well. That's our MO at Bet365 and here at the Racing Post as well. All that sport out there. Enjoy it.